Welcome to another exciting episode of Mission Compliance, unleashing growth potential for defense contractors. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic for anyone involved in safeguarding sensitive information, NIST SP 800-171 Revision 3. Whether you're a compliance veteran or just starting your journey, we've got the insights you need to understand the latest revisions, navigate the changes, and ensure your organization remains secure and compliant. From new control requirements to implementation tips, we're here to guide you through every step of the way. So grab your coffee, your notepad, and let's get started on unraveling the complexities of NIST SP 800-171 Revision 3. Stay tuned because this is one episode you won't want to miss. Bueller? We're joined once again today by Mike Frieder, president of On-Call Compliance Solutions and a CMMC professional assessor, as well as our friend Bill Bailey, CMMC registered practitioner and a certified professional. Bill is our executive vice president of compliance and heading our NIST SP 800-171 revision evolution program. I did not write that introduction. Mike did, just to throw me off, and he did. So guys, today we're talking about the latest revision of NIST SP 800-171 Revision 3. That's why our friend Bill is here. He always seems to have his finger on the pulse of the compliance world. So whoever wants to answer this question first can go ahead. Can you give us an overview of what Revision 3 entails and how it differs from previous revisions? Bill, let's start with you.
So Revision 3 really is a more streamlined approach. It's more of an update process over Revision 2. Obviously, Revision 2 had been out for quite a while, and Revision 3, basically, they wanted to interpret or better interpret some controls, tighten up some controls, add more tightened security to controls, make them more precise, as well as making it more clear for defense contractors to get compliant with these controls and make it just a more efficient process. There was also, controls from Revision 2 that were a bit outdated. And so you'll notice going from Revision 2 to Revision 3, there's a lot of controls, that you'll see that are withdrawn, or I should say like the sub-controls or determination statements as they're called. They'll say that, oh, yep, they're withdrawn. And, Revision 3 actually has 97 controls, where Revision 2 had 110 controls. And at first you might go, oh, well, 97, this is going to be an easier time. Well, it's actually not. It's even though there's lesser number of controls, there's more what's called determination statements, which is actually requirements. So we go from actual requirements from 320 in Revision 2 to I believe it's 440 in Revision 3. So quite a lot more requirements there, or it might be 420. I've got to look back at that. 422 requirements in Revision 3. So it adds, quite about 102 more requirements there. So
because defense contractors needed more stuff to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And most of those controls, they're tighter controls, they're more concise controls. I think overall Revision 3 is better for defense contractors. But is with Revision 2, I know there was some confusion, there was some complexity sometimes with the interpretation. There was a lot of questions. Do I think this 100% answers all those questions? No, but I think we've gotten a lot closer. And I think they've made it easier through most of this process for defense contractors to actually get compliant with what the DoD had originally asked for back in 2017.
Anything to add to that, Mike?
No, not at all. I mean, I think I have to be honest that I think on this one with Revision 3, what's interesting is, the Cyber AB has been adamant that defense contractors should not focus on Revision 3 for CMMC certification. So I think that's one of the reasons why we brought Bill in, is because, we know that eventually for defense, Revision 3 will be it, right? That's always the general sort of direction of the laws. Whatever the latest version of NIST SP 800-171 is, that's what will apply. But I've chosen to really not focus on that a whole lot because it's very clear by both the DoD and the Cyber AB that revision 2 is what defense contractors need. And therefore, I think, Bill is kind of our man of the hour here when it comes to revision 3. So we've taken a bit of a divide and conquer approach. You know what? I'm learning right along with our audience. So yeah, not to, let it not be me that gets in the way of the expert.
So with that being said, what practical steps can organizations take to ensure they comply with the new requirements?
So right now, to comply with the new requirements, so there is no, well, let me rephrase that. Going back to what Mike said earlier about the time frame, the important question is, okay, when do defense contractors, when will this be, it's already finalized. So revision 3 is already finalized. It's out there. The DoD's put out a directive and said, hey, for right now, all defense contractors are staying on revision 2 for the foreseeable future. When do we expect to see defense contractors actually have to go live or be compliant with revision 3? That's the big question, because there's some defense contractors out there, just like I would be, that at any moment, like next month or something like that, somebody could say, or the DoD could say, oh, well, you've got to be compliant with revision 3 now. That's not the way, according to from what I've heard, and I don't think the DoD would do that, do this to us, but they're going to give us full warning before they actually say, yep, everybody's going to now need to be compliant with revision 3. Remember, it was the DoD that put out that directive and says, hey, everybody right now, we're going to stay on revision 2. Now, they had there's a couple of different concerns they had, and that's why they wanted everybody to stay on revision 2. Some of those concerns were like, there's a new assessment methodology that's got to come along or come out of this with revision 3. There's training, there's requirements that are going to have to be changed or mitigated, reinterpreted. All of that kind of stuff has to fit into this. And there's some defense contractors that are right in the middle of, getting compliant, getting, to that level, to revision 2 compliance right now. And they just are now getting to, the CMMC 2.0 is finally getting to the point of getting finalized, hopefully this fall. And then, certifications will start up. So you got to think that, oh, well, if they just switch all of a sudden and put out revision 3, that's going to change the certification experience as well. And then all the assessors that are currently trained on revision 2, now they've got to be trained on revision 3. And it's true that revision 2, there's some controls that, and it's just a couple here and there that revision 2 says that they do not allow, where in revision 3 they do allow. So there would be more interpretation, confusion, and everything else. So I think what the DoD is perfect. They're like, hey, we've got it out. Everybody's got plenty of time to look at this, and everybody's going to have plenty of time and opportunity to get ready for this. So when do defense contractors need to get ready for this? Well, I think the time is now. They need to know about it. They need to learn about it. They need to get a good handle or have somebody like on call walk them through and say, hey, these are the changes. And in your environment, these are how these changes will affect you. And guide them through that process, and to make sure that when the time comes, they're going to be compliant with any of these changes. There's some major updates here in revision 3. And one that's really important to me that I think we've needed and it's long overdue is supply chain risk management. So they've called out an individual supply chain risk management basically program in there that now you just don't do risk assessments across or whatever. You actually need to make sure that you're monitoring and have a risk assessment done for supply chain risk management, and making sure you're looking at your actual supply chain. Which makes a lot of sense in the defense, in our defense supply chain. So there's aspects of that that's got to be done, and that basically companies are going to have to gear up to. There's planning stages, services and acquisition stages as well in this that companies are going to have to gear up to. And even at, let's say they're 100% ready to go with revision 2, there's still some things in there that they're going to have to bolt on and add on to what they've already done. Not necessarily super major, but still they're going to have to generate some new documentation, and they're going to have to think about some new things here and there to kind of add to the cybersecurity assessment that they're going through. And, the other part of this is it's not a one and done thing. It's never been a one and done thing. And I think revision 3 puts more emphasis on ongoing compliance as well. So I know that's kind of rambling, and it still didn't answer the original question. But for the foreseeable future, it is revision 2. And I don't anticipate that, companies will have to go with revision 3. Obviously not this year. I think CMMC will get finalized. There'll be a certification process. And I don't think, I think sometime maybe next year or after we'll see, revision 3. But again, I think the DoD will give us plenty of a timeline. But again, I can only stress that the time is now to start looking at this, and that's why we're jumping ahead on this and going ahead and looking at this for our clients and future clients and everything else, because we want to make sure that we're prepared going forward to make sure we're covering all bases and knowing everything on both sides, revision 2 as well as revision 3, because now you're kind of straddling, two sides here with two different laws or control sets. So we want to do the best for our clients and everybody involved. So right now, foreseeable future, it's going to be revision 2. The DoD will give us plenty of time, I believe, they'll give us fair warning before they just go, yep, it's revision 3 now. And, I'm sure we'll have that, grace period or whatever in there. And then they'll ratify revision 3. The directive will go away. Revision 3 will be there. It'll be implemented in the CMMC certification process and all of that good stuff. And, then we'll move forward from that, and we'll be on to the next big thing or to the next good compliance thing. And remember, all this thing, it's always about is strengthening compliance. We started at a point, and we're going to be gaining some things, and this whole process will be getting more perfected as it gets moving along here.
Absolutely. Mike, go ahead. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I think, sometimes you have to kind of look at the example in the room, if you will. So I think if you look at the example of what we're doing here at On Call, our primary efforts are definitely still on revision 2. Our virtual compliance officers across the company are focused on revision 2. Our team is focused on revision 2. However, you see who we have on the line here, right? We brought the big guns. I mean, this is an executive VP out of our company, and he's the person who is tackling revision 3 so that we can be ready for that switchover. I don't, I think maybe an interesting question to ask would be, do you foresee, Bill, that there are major changes that IT directors and companies will need to make to their systems to comply with R3? Or is this more of a paperwork change that is going to result in everybody having to redo their system security plans? There's obviously another 100 items on the in terms of total number of assessment points, but is that just extra sort of garbage to get things more specific, or are there real tangible changes to security that folks are going to have to make? Do you have any opinion there?
So I think I always think about this process and kind of put it into the different families or different categories or domains and look at it from the technical controls and then physical controls, and then, the training, awareness, the human factor, and all of that. And there, obviously there's some changes in there. There's some meat in there about the technical controls, obviously. But I see overall what they're trying to do is really trying to strengthen that mindset about the ongoing compliance and making sure that they're adding in there the programs and the ongoing compliance, like the risk management side for the supply chain, and pointing out, making things more specific and concise without a lot of ambiguation or anything like that. So again, they're trying to streamline this process, but at the same time, tighten up those controls and making sure things just make kind of wording it so it makes more sense to defense contractors, and therefore out of that making it easier to comply. But as far as net changes and everything, I don't see like technical controls, like having to add a lot of security controls. There's going to be some that will come out of this. But I think it's more about making sure that they've got the proper training, the awareness, documentation, and really the overall governance, which is very important because, again, we can have all the great tools in the world. But if we don't have that human factor in it, and if we don't have a mindset where we're occasionally monitoring this, or periodically we're making sure that human eyes at some point are looking at these controls, and we're verifying truly, no matter how great our technical controls are, we need to make sure we're verifying that our controls are working and that we're staying compliant and we're doing the right thing. And compliance, again, for some companies, it's a daily, weekly, monthly, it's a every single day process. Just depending on how they're set up in their environment. And that's why they need to kind of work within that kind of that governance, that kind of framework. And that's why, again, it's so valuable for these companies and defense contractors to kind of isolate that CUI and get it in a secure data enclave and kind of make it, as concise and non-complex as possible. To kind of take that burden off and not have CUI spread everywhere and kind of keep it secured in one spot. So these kind of things, whenever you do it like that, these kind of things, and anytime they make these changes, everything runs a little bit smoother and you can adapt and you have more flexibility when these type of changes do come. But as far as actual technical controls, I don't see a lot there. It's tightening up there. There's better wording, more preciseness about what you do need to have in place. Then really a lot of it's adding a lot more governance on the side of, hey, you need to make sure that you're managing ongoing compliance, and you need to make sure you're really looking at supply chain risk management as well. And it's adding some different categories in there. So it's again, it's technical more, I would still say there's some, but most of it's going to be organizational structure and some training, some extracurricular training here and there, and more defined roles in this process. But overall, kind of a restructuring of what revision 2 was, and just strengthening the overall kind of ongoing compliance process.
Absolutely. I did have a third question, but yeah, I think it mostly got answered during the process of this. And Mike's question was better than mine anyway. So before we wrap this up, Bill, since you're new to this podcast process, well, what we like to do at the end of the podcast is to ask kind of a silly question, because these topics can get a little bit dry, and you can feel free to take this silly question and answer it as close to the actual stuff as possible. Mike's pretty good at that. I actually have two silly questions, one for Bill and one for Mike, so that Mike doesn't feel left out in his favorite part of the podcast. So Bill, we'll start with you, and my question is this: if you had to use a movie title to describe the process of complying with NIST SP 800-171 Revision 3, what would it be?
Man, that's a good one. I would use basically pretty much a classic: the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what I would use.
There you go.
That's right.
There you go. The first thing that popped into my head was Mad Max Fury Road, but it's same difference.
Yeah. A close second might be Inception.
But, that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, no Matrix.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the easy one.
There you go. And so yeah, it's not, complying with this isn't going to be easy, but it's going to be necessary. I think that's what Bill's getting at with the good, the bad, and the ugly there.
Yep.
And so Mike, your turn. What's a more exciting topic at a dinner party? NIST SP 800-171 compliance or paint drying?
Well, if you're at my house, it's probably paint drying. I once tried to have a conversation with my wife. We were just talking about this before we actually came on the podcast. we have this joke around the company about our spouses trying to figure out what it is that we do for a living. And it's like, are we a computer company? Are we a defense company? Are we a consultant? Nobody can actually figure out what it is that we do. And I'm not sure we can figure it out either. But
Right.
I once tried to have a conversation about what it is that we do here. And I don't think it was received very well. The wife just kind of shook her head and she went, "You just go back to what you're doing. I'm fine with it."
Yep. As I said to these guys before we started recording this podcast, I said whenever somebody asks me what it is that the company does, I ask them, "Do you want the easy answer?" And then we go from there. But
Roman, as I say, Roman and Mike, I say, whenever I get asked that question, I say, well, our clients call us and we try to help them.
That's right.
You know?
that's the
Yeah.
safest answer you can have,
Yeah.
probably. That's
It
probably
doesn't
what we
really
should
matter
just
what. Yeah.
that's probably what we should just brand ourselves as from now on. Just that's it.
Broke things we fix.
There you go. And that wraps up another great episode of Mission Compliance. We hope our discussion today has provided you with valuable insights and practical strategies and inspiration to navigate the ever-evolving world of defense. We'd like to thank both Mike and Bill for hanging out with us today and talking about the new revision when it comes to NIST SP 800-171. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Hey,
you.
always a pleasure, Roman.
But the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these topics and connect with us on our social media channels. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and engage with fellow listeners using the hashtag Mission Compliance Podcast. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms so you know when new episodes like this one are released, and you never know when you might see Bill again. But we'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you thought-provoking episodes and high-quality content. Join us next time as we delve further into the dynamic world of defense, security, and industry innovation. Until then, take care, stay informed, and make compliance your mission. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.